please remain standing after that for the Pledge of Allegiance. That'll be led by Alderman Payne.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this bright and beautiful day, Lord. We thank you for the cool weather that's come in so that we can enjoy it, Lord. Lord, I pray that we would just model you in our everyday life and everything we say and think and do, Lord. Let it be a result of your influence on us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first on the agenda this evening is approval of minutes. We have two meetings to approve. The first one is for the May 15, 2018 meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 15th, 2018 with any additions, deletions, or corrections.
Second. We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Hoop?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries. Next, I'll entertain a motion for the minutes, to approve the minutes for the May 31 meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the minutes for the specially called meeting on May 31st with any additions, deletions, or corrections.
Second. We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Hoop?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Next on the agenda is the 2018 through 2022 Parks Enhancement and Expansion Plan. We had a special meeting on May 31st to discuss this issue. As we talked about then, just this year the state legislature reinstated the tourism tax, restaurant tourism tax in our city, which must be used for parks and recreation or tourism. So that money has been used to fund park enhancements. So as we received a reinstatement of that revenue, we wanted to get together and revise our plan for the next 4 years. So that's what the meeting on May 31 was about. So tonight, what we decided to do, instead of doing like we did in 2014, we decided to take each individual issue and let the board vote if they agree to support that expenditure. The reason this is important, as I stated on May 31, it's very efficient for the city to know, what we're going to do, so we create some type of unity in our plan. We don't want to spend money designing projects that are never going to occur. Also, timing is an issue. Some of these projects take a long time to design. We don't want to waste that time and waste money if it's not something that the Board of Aldermen is going to approve. So that's the purpose of having an agreement to support. The items that are listed on there are the items that were discussed on May 31. So we'll start with item A. I'll entertain a motion to approve the arena floor leveling. You'll notice, excuse me just a second, you'll notice that we won't go into a bunch of detail about exactly what the projects are. That's been heavily discussed in the past. It was heavily discussed on May 31. Obviously, if there's any questions among the board, please stop. I'll be glad to clarify or answer any questions about that.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the arena floor leveling as presented for the fiscal year 2018.
Second.
Mayor, I had a quick question I wanted to ask.
Hang
You
on
said
a second.
something.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, a second by Alderman Gallagher. Now we'll open up the floor for discussion.
You said that you thought once we leveled the floor or some things, we could bring back some things. What are you envisioning that we might be able to bring back over there with the added floor space and that kind of stuff?
Just having the general multi-use ability again. It's specifically no specific events. Obviously, the flea market was discussed. There's still, even with a level floor, there's still some challenges about having the flea market there due to scheduling challenges with volleyball. But it gives us more options, it gives us more flexibility where you don't have to move the courts. So like with the floor being level, you can move the volleyball courts to the back, which opens up much space in the front without having to move the courts at all. And that way you could have, trade shows, just basically multi-use again, where you're not having to have traffic on the volleyball
Do you
floor.
think we might could have that, like the fire department's safety day, when they bring the fire trucks in? Would there be any way to do something like that, or, you think that would be a viable use?
I'm not aware of any reason at this point that it would cause a problem with that. The issue that was discussed, the volleyball floor can be taken up and down, but it cannot withstand the weight of vehicular traffic. So, if we're able to move the courts, then the area that does not have the floor should be conducive to bringing vehicles in. So, which is definitely something we'd entertain.
Great, thanks.
Any other discussion about item A? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Now we'll move on to item B. Is there a motion to entertain the agreement to support the Springfest pavement and Bank Plus Amphitheater parking lot?
Mr. Ray, I'll make that motion. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Wheeler, second by Alderman Hoots. I'll start the discussion. I changed my mind. I am going to give a brief overview of what everything is again. I thought y'all were going to make me shut up tonight. This basically is the Springfest area. For the people in the audience that have not heard this before, obviously anyone that's ever been to Springfest knows that if it's going to rain one day in the year, it's going to rain on Springfest. So we have a mud pit out there every year. So what this plan will do is pave the area where the barbecue teams are. It's not just going to be a flat parking lot. It's going to be one that will have landscaping. It'll be very beautiful. It also will double as a parking lot for amphitheater events. Also could be used for RVs. We have the tourism draw that we have with baseball. A lot of people choose to bring their RVs. This will be another place where they can park. They would have electricity. So we believe it's a very efficient use of the money. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries. All right, next on the agenda is item C. This is a soccer field, new soccer field expansion at Snowden Grove Park. Agreement to support. Can I have a motion to open discussion about that?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the soccer field expansion of Stoughton Grove for fiscal year 18 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Wheeler. Quick overview of this. This is to expand our soccer operation. Right now we have soccer fields on the western end of our city on State Line Road that's been the location of our soccer in the city. What we're trying to do here is bring additional soccer fields to the Snowden Grove area, which is a more central location and a higher demand. We've been told, we've asked a lot of questions. We didn't pull this plan out of our hip pocket. We've asked a lot of questions of people that understand the soccer draw, and we know that we're losing the ability to have soccer tournaments in our city now because of the location of our park. There is misinformation. Some choose to continue to churn misinformation. So I got the camera running. You'll hear me and see me say it. This is not to replace the soccer fields that are in existence now. It's to add additional soccer fields that will enable us to have soccer tournaments. We will still use the old fields for soccer. If anyone that is a soccer expert, and I said we got some soccer experts in the audience,
One of you.
y'all know that 7 fields, that's what we're proposing to build at Snowden. But if this thing takes off like we believe it will, you're going to need more than 7 fields. So you got the additional fields where the original park is now. So we believe that both will be utilized. But soccer is in demand. It opens up a lot of opportunities for our youth. There's many college scholarships. There's many things that soccer will allow educational opportunities. And it's no secret, it's a tourism draw, which brings money to the city. We had a discussion the other day is why is everything about money? I'm here to tell you, it is about money. We have one of the most important jobs that we have here is to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. Any dollar that's made in the city with a tourism draw is a dollar less of a burden on our taxpayers. So it's one of our most important responsibilities to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. We believe soccer at Snowden will be a tremendous tourism draw. It'll also spark additional economic development because our park now is seasonal. You know, baseball is seasonal. We do not have things going on at other parts of the year. We believe soccer is more of a year-round sport, which will bring more customers to that area on an annual basis, which promotes economic development area. I believe, I won't speak for anyone else, I believe it's a great decision that will pay huge dividends for our city financially and for the future of our kids. Is there any other discussion?
Mayor, I would like to say that I've had discussions with quite a few residents in my area since we've had our meeting, and they still feel strongly that, you know, it feels like it's being something taken away from the west side. So just with that one thing, I'm not going to be able to support that plan tonight.
Okay, would you do me one favor though? Would you ask them to go back and watch the video of what I just said?
I will.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoot.
No.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries. All right, now we'll move on to item D. This is the Field of Dreams Playground Agreement to Support. Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Payne. I'll open discussion again with a brief overview. I'll be more brief. I'll briefer this time. The Field of Dreams Playground is a special needs playground. It's to bring equipment that we don't have in the city now. We have the Field of Dreams Park that is at Snowden Grove that's already set up with the baseball field there. We have additional real estate there that's not being used. We believe that's an ideal place to put this special playground equipment. I think it would do a great job in helping our kids that have these special needs, and so I'm strongly in favor of the Field of Dreams playground. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoot.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries. All right, next on the agenda is item E. It's a walking, running track at Central Park, agreement to support. It's up in here.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Kelly. I'll open discussion. Basically what this is not to be confused with a walking trail. We have trails at Central Park. This is an athletic track like you would see for track and field events, but it's something that would be open to the public for walking, running. Again, it would be versatile as you would have people that actually want to train for track. They would have the lines marked off. They can run 220s, 440s. I doubt we'll have hurdles there, but anyway, unless Alderman Gallagher wants to put on a display or something.
Do we have bike racks?
Can we charge just for that?
Yeah, Alderman Gallagher wants bike racks and hurdles. But no, the track is something that we believe will not be extremely expensive. We think it will be a great use of taxpayer or tourism funds to allow versatility where people can walk and run, train, whatever on the track. The location proposed at this point would be towards the Tullahoma side. If you enter the park from Tullahoma, there's a large amount of vacant land on the left. We believe that we could put a track there and it'd be very useful for our community. I also advocate for this and would ask my board to support this tonight.
So moved.
Second.
I think we already had
Still thinking about hurdles, Joel.
No hurdles.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries. Next on the agenda is item F, and this is the Greenbrook Softball Indoor Training Facility, and we're asking for agreement to support.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Kelly. Again, a quick overview of this. For many years, we had, when Snowden Park was built in 1999, the Bank Plus Training Center is there for indoor training. You have areas for batting cages, automatic pitching machines, areas for pitching training, and other things that are in that facility. We've never had anything for the girls. You've heard me say this many times the last 5 years. We've been working towards this. We really want to have something similar. It won't be as large because we don't have enough real estate, but something for the girls located at the Greenbrook Park. The location proposed at this time is on the Greenbrook entrance when you come in to the softball complex from Greenbrook Parkway. There's some vacant land just to the north there. We think would be an ideal place. This building would house offices for our director. When the teams come in from out of town or wherever and check in, they would have a place to find, easier to find the director to check in. And then also it's important in the wintertime when the weather is bad outside that our girls have a place to train and improve their game. Anyone that knows anything about sports, it's not a mystery that, that Major League Baseball and big-time college softball, the players typically that excel are ones that have training opportunities year-round. That's why you find a lot of Latin American players in the major leagues. They have better weather. They can get more reps, and that's how they become a better player. We want to do the same thing for our girls here. We want to make sure that when the weather's bad in Southaven, that they have a place to go in and work on their hitting and their pitching and become a better player, which opens up, again, educational opportunities in the form of scholarships. And even if they don't go that far, there's so many benefits to youth sports that improve our youth and prepare them for other things in their lives. So I also support the Greenbrook training facility. Any other discussion?
Mayor, is that going to happen, it says 2020, but with this loan we're talking about, it could happen sooner, right?
Correct. The spreadsheet that's on here, that was before our discussion about doing a bank loan, which we're going to talk about later. But with the bank loan, the year, all of them could start now. So no, there is no, the fiscal year on there can be ignored if we are going to approve the bank loan, which will allow us flexibility to go ahead and start all the projects now.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries. All right, next on the agenda is the last item. It's item G, the splash park at Snowden Grove. We talked about this in the May 31 public meeting. There's still a lot of questions about the splash park. To give a little bit of history to that. There's been many requests over the years. You know, in the summer months at Snowden and our other parks, you know, the young children, mainly the siblings, you know, if someone's there seeing their sibling play ball, for the younger kids are hot, you know, they get impatient. It's tough on the parents and the grandparents that are trying to entertain the other kids, you know, while big brother or sister is playing ball. So there's been a need for having something that the smaller kids can go do while their sibling is playing ball. So that's the benefit of having a splash park. This is not to be confused with a water amusement park. This is not some huge amusement park. This is a very simple thing where the little kids can go splash around. There's spray mist, things like that. But it's something that we feel like would be beneficial. I will tell you that after our May 31 meeting, there's still a lot of unknowns about this, like where we would put it. There's also been discussion from private business in the area wanting to put a splash park on their own. Obviously, if a private business wants to do it, that would be something that we don't have to spend, you know, taxpayer money on. So we're still hoping for that. We don't know that yet, so still some unknowns. The other thing I will say, and just to point out, there's always liability with water. That's something that's a concern, even if it's a small amount of water. So we have to be conscious of that from a city perspective, the liability we create for the city by, adding water to our parks. So I tell you all that to say that there's still a large number of unknowns. We want to see a splash park in the area, but there's so many unknowns at this point about the splash park. My recommendation to the board is that we table the splash park.
I will make that motion to table.
Second.
Discussion.
We have a motion to table the splash park till we get complete information. Motion was made by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. All right, that will conclude our agreement to support the Parks Enhancement and Expansion Plan. I thank our Board of Aldermen for all the work that they put in. There's been a lot of discussion about our parks. We're very blessed in the City of Southaven to have great parks, and we want to continue to make it even better. So I thank the board for their agreement to support these projects tonight. Next on the agenda is a resolution to name voting delegates for the MML conference.
Anyone want to volunteer to be a voting delegate?
I think the rookies ought to go.
I agree. And be the flag bearer.
And be the flag bearer. I make a motion for Alderman Hoots and Alderman Wheeler to be a voting delegate.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Flores. Who made the second?
I'll take everybody.
Everybody.
Motion by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Brooks. Any discussion?
Man, y'all used to know what you're going to end up with that.
This is our form of hazing.
Any other discussion?
You gotta put that second on her.
Oh.
I'll be the second.
Second. Second
Christian.
on.
I'll be the second.
Let us step up.
He's hoping.
Christian's a team player.
Okay, so we're amending the motion to be Alderman Hoots, Alderman Wheeler, and Alderman Kelly as an alternate. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Next on the agenda is the Pulsara contract, Southend Fire Department. Mr. Nick Manley.
There's actually two contracts tonight with Pulsara. The first is a subscription agreement with Pulsara. It's for the Southaven Fire Department to help them when transporting certain patients for the technology used to alert the hospital that they're coming in. Obviously, Chief Scallion is here tonight and answer any more questions on that, but the contracts don't cost us anything. It's a free service, but they do require us to enter into the contract. So the first one will be with the subscription agreement. We made some changes to it. They agreed to it. So now I need approval for the mayor to sign that contract.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Gallagher, second by Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries.
And one more contract on that. The next is the business associate agreement with Pulsara, and it basically sets forth the obligations under the HIPAA laws and the disclosure laws that have all been passed under the last couple of years. So this will set forth those obligations. And like I said, made some changes to that as well, which Pulsara agreed to. So tonight, authorization for the mayor to sign the business associate agreement with Pulsara as well.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Next on the agenda is a resolution for the Southaven Police Department surplus.
This is just property that came by Southaven Police Department tonight, surplus under 172525, and the resolution and the property is listed for the approval tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt the resolution, Mayor and Board of Aldermen, City of Southaven disposing of seized property in the Southaven Police Department as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Flores. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoots.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries. Next on the agenda is a resolution of intent and engagement to borrow $5.2 million pursuant to Mississippi Code 172151. This is what we referred to earlier for the Parks Enhancement and Expansion Plan. This is a way to obtain a bank loan instead of paying cash annually for the projected $1.8 to $1.9 million in restaurant tourism revenue to fund the park enhancement projects. Is to do a simple bank loan, which will give us the flexibility to go ahead and build those projects now, leverage our money now, where we can go ahead and provide the benefit to our citizens and have the tourism revenue coming in now rather than waiting yearly to do the projects. We discussed this on May 31. Chris Wilson did discuss that with me about doing 4 or 5 years. State law allows us to go up to 5 years, but since we do not want to incur debt, this is just, again, using the tourism revenue as the payment to pay the bank loan. So we want to align that, or my recommendation is to align that 4 years. So we have a 4-year Parks Enhancement Plan, have a guaranteed 4 years revenue. So I think we should make the bank loan to coincide from a timeline with that and be a 4-year bank loan.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion for notice of resolution of intent.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion?
Just real quick.
The note will be advertised in the paper on Thursday with the opening of the bids Thursday the 19th, which will be our next meeting. So the intent to award the 19th. So the next meeting with the intent to award the lowest interest rate to that bank. SAR passed for 10 days, and then plus Chris Wilson will send out the bid packets throughout the community for the local banks as well, in addition to the notice to try to get as many bids as possible for the rate. And the resolution will authorize that intent and the engagement of Alder Snow to proceed with assistance with this.
Is this amount minus the splash park? Is that what?
Well, this is, well, what is the, no, the
5.2.
No, the total park improvements are $7.375 million. So this is not, the amount of the loan for this does not cover all of it. We don't need it for all of them. Like
Okay.
the payment on four-year loans projected to be about $1.4 million. We're going to be bringing in about $1.8, $1.9 million with tourism revenue. So no, this is not to fund the entire program. This is just to give us the flexibility to do the larger one basically, which is the soccer expansion. So no, this is the total investment or the total revenue we'll have projected is $7.375 million over 4 years. So we're only proposing doing a $5.2 million loan, which is the max by state law.
You can't exceed 1% of your assessed valuation, so you're not exceeding the 1% or the 1721.51.
And most, besides soccer, most of the other projects are smaller, so they would be able to be paid for with cash. The main need for this is the larger projects, which would be the soccer expansion in Greenbrook training facility.
The residual after the principal payment.
Correct. Yeah, if you make the principal payment, we're still going to have enough revenue to do the smaller projects. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoots.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries. Next on the agenda is deputy court clerk appointments.
There's no action to take, just enter this into the minutes tonight. As you recall, board meeting last year when you appointed this municipal court judges, you gave them the power to appoint deputy court clerks pursuant to the statute. So tonight, just need to enter into the minutes that Joshua Freeman, Mary Siemens, and Latita Brown were all sworn, or were all appointed deputy court clerks by the court department. So no action, just make a note of that in the minutes.
Okay, and next on the agenda is the Pinehurst levy discussion. Mr. Danny Cordell, our city engineering consultant, was unable to be with us. He had a family situation that required his presence out of town. So Nick is very familiar with the issue. So Nick, do you want to just brief the board on the summary of what the discussion's about?
Yes, sir. I'll fill in real quick. As you know, Dan had a family emergency and couldn't make it tonight, so he asked me to just kind of brief the board. As you recall, I think it's either February or March of this year, the Pinehurst Dam was about to collapse, and it was a breach to prevent that from happening by the city, so nothing would happen on College Road. I think we shut down College Road for 2 or 3 days during that time as well. Since that time, Dan and Civil Inc. have been working on a possible plan to repair that levee in that dam, but as part of it, under the relevant statute, assess the homeowners who are based on surface area, the cost for that dam, or for the repair, as it being a drainage surface area where the water flows into in that subdivision. So they've been working with their design team and that, looking into the different options. And at this juncture tonight, bring it to the board to get some guidance, because the way it would work is that we assess the homeowners. You would go through a hearing for those homeowners who would be assessed, and set the cost out. The preliminary cost that they've got at this point is around, pull it up like so. This is just preliminary, like $51,660 would be including everything. That doesn't include all the bonds or any contingencies that may be out there for the repair, but that's what they're estimating the cost to be. The way it works is you would then, under the statute, 2141 line of statutes, you go through and have a public hearing, set the cost of the project, and then you would assess the homeowners who, based on their percentage of the area that border the drainage surface area, their allocated cost. So tonight, no action can be taken other than briefing the board and then authorizing Dan and his team to start meeting with these homeowners to make sure this is something they want to do, make sure that's something the board's interested in doing. So that's what we're doing tonight, just trying to get some direction and feedback from the board and the mayor regarding that idea and that plan. This would be an assessment that they would vote themselves, or the board would vote. Now the homeowners there could then protest some of that, protest the assessment based on the amount that they believe they should owe or not owe. And so it would still be a couple more things to go through as far as procedurally for it to work out based on how the Mississippi Code requires us to do it. But tonight, was wanting to bring it to you to see if the board did have any questions, or if the board would prefer for Dan and his guys to start working and talking to some of the homeowners at Pinehurst and representatives to get their thoughts on things, and then bring back to the board, hopefully either the next meeting or the next, to set the public hearing, assuming all goes well. And then see if there's any protests or anything in the city, from Pinehurst, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who get to vote. And the board votes, but they can ultimately be the ones who, certain landowners can stop it based on the percentage of their land by saying, we don't want this to move forward, from the standpoint of what they would owe on the assessment. The assessment would be added to their tax bill over a 10 to 15 year period. So that's how you recoup the money, is through the tax bill. So.
What do you need a motion for?
Motion to authorize Dan and Civil Inc. to start talking and making them aware of this, and then meeting with the homeowners of Pinehurst.
I'll make a motion to open discussion.
How many homeowners are there in that subdivision?
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Brooks.
In the total subdivision?
No, and this is just covering the lake.
The lake?
There's about 14 to 15.
I can tell you exactly.
Here's the map we have.
So it would only be the homeowners
Just
on
around
the
the
lake
lake.
that would be assessed?
Just around the lake. Not everybody.
14 involved with the assessment, based on that percentage.
51,114. And the bottom line is, we had to breach the dam for the public safety
Well,
safety reasons.
I may be able to help a little bit, just kind of put this in perspective. This particular situation, College Road is just south of the levee.
Right.
So we had to make a decision. We were worried about the safety of drivers on College Road. We were, well, Dan and Civil Link actually were spot on. They expressed that there was a immediate concern, and actually the levee did begin to breach. We'd already, purposely breached the levee, started draining the water, lowering the lake level, but it did actually breach like within days of that. So our fear was it would cause public safety on the road. But this issue, and that's not what the motion is tonight, I mean, we can open that up for future discussion, but I do want the board to know that we need to come to some type of decision on how we want to handle this in the future, because this won't be the only situation. Levees are expensive to maintain. That's the situation we're in here. No one of the homeowners stepped up and had the financial wherewithal or offered that to do the repairs on the levee. So when that happens, it becomes the city's business, and we have to take action because it affects other people other than just the people that live on the lake. I mean, we have drivers on the road. So we have other situations like that. Basically, what the decision is ultimately going to be is, do we want to be the one that maintains levees on private lakes in our city? Do we want to do that? And then if we don't want to do that, then we get into doing assessments where the homeowners actually still maintain. They pay for it. We pay it up front, and then we assess them, to make sure that the levee stays safe for our city.
Yeah, all this would be is if we go through the assessment, we'd be fixing it, repairing it, and then giving our money back for the assessment over some length of time. But they would still be that they would still be maintaining it. It's just we'd be the one fixing it from the standpoint of repairing a drainage structure, because it is a drainage surface area throughout that neighborhood. So.
I believe that's how we did it several years ago with Greenbrook Lake. I think Greenbrook needed, Chris, do you remember?
Actually, Greenbrook, we maintain the lake. We file all the reports with the state on the levee.
Well, there was something, I think there was a levee issue at Greenbrook Lake, and I think we assessed the property owners around Greenbrook and the fixes there.
I don't recall doing that. We did.
Oh, we didn't?
There was maybe a resolution passed and never went forward.
I'll make the motion for Dan to go ahead and start talking to those 14 homeowners.
I mean, I think it's not just getting direction, just something the board didn't want to entertain from the standpoint of doing this, because I don't think that Civil Link wanted to get down the road and the board like we didn't want to entertain this notion. So I think tonight was just getting some feedback saying is this something the board would be willing to consider, because it would be some hoops to jump through as far as publishing the resolution, getting the hearing set. So it's not anything monumental, but it just procedurally has to be done in pursuant to the Mississippi statutes.
Well, personally, I don't think the city ought to be responsible for private lakes. Yeah, we aren't. But in this situation, we had a public safety issue, and we had to deal with it. And to some of the homeowners' credits, they actually came to us. They came to me, I think they came to you, Mayor, and they came to Dan and said, look, we got a problem here, we need your help.
Oh, no, it's definitely a public structure from the standpoint of, or public interest from the standpoint of what that structure affects as far as college.
I just don't want the city to setting precedent going forward. If we don't entertain, in my opinion, we don't entertain getting that money back, and we're setting precedent to take care of all private lakes at that point. I don't see us doing that.
And it's not from the standpoint of the city, obviously there is probably, but we're not looking from a private lake standpoint, looking from the drainage surface area standpoint, from the public, because there is a public hazard.
But it's their responsibility to maintain it, because it got to that point. They didn't maintain it, it got to that point.
Correct. It is also important to note, I did communicate this with some of the homeowners, that since it did become an emergency type situation, we had to take funding that was already allocated to other projects on our drainage improvement. That's where the money came from. So that puts us in a situation where we're delaying another drainage improvement project to handle emergencies like this. I want y'all to know that.
My question is there a homeowners association for that area? Or?
There is a homeowner association, but there is not one that covers that lake, is my understanding. So the HOA, and I don't understand how it all works, to be quite honest with you, but there is an HOA, but the HOA is not, that was one of the original lakes, so the HOA it covers other lakes, but not that particular lake.
So it's 14 homeowners take care of that.
Yeah.
Take care of that.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that we're not for lack of better words, targeting just those certain people? Like if there's a wider.
No, we can
right-
only target under the statute, we can only go to these 14 anyway, because the way it has to be divided up, there's a specific formula, and I'm going to plead my ignorance here, it's very mathematical as far as how it's set forth, that's what the engineers had to figure out the formula, but there's a formula on how you actually set the assessment based on the surface area next to the drainage area. So there's a mathematical quotient, if you will, on how it works, so the only ones you could actually assess would be those ones who actually surround the surface area that's being improved, if you will. Now that being said, nothing prohibits other homeowners from helping.
Right.
But the city can only charge and do it that way.
I got you.
I may be wrong, but the way Dan explained it to me was, it depends on what their frontage is on the lake.
Yes.
You know, what that surface area is in front of their house, that's the percentage that they're gonna be responsible for. Some of the 14 homeowners have much bigger frontage, some have smaller frontage.
Right, and I guess my other question is was this a lack of maintenance issue that caused this, or was this a developer just building improperly?
That, I can't answer that. I mean, I know it's probably a lack of maintenance. I don't know as far as how it was built. It was built before it was in the city actually annexed this area, so I don't know if the city's got any records on the building, because it was built before it was annexed. I don't know the answer to that. Dan could probably answer that better back with it.
Okay.
I can tell you that levees do have a lifespan. They're not, I mean, it doesn't mean that they're not built right. They do have to have maintenance on it. So I think that this situation was one where it was time, you know, for something to be done, and then whatever reason the HOA or the property owners, you know, did not do that. But levees do have a lifespan. Just because you build them right doesn't mean that you're not going to have problems.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I do have a map too that shows a prorated ownership based on the frontage linear square feet. I mean, excuse me, the square feet on the that is adjacent to the lake. So if you'll pass that, just pass that around. But basically, just wanted to be informative tonight. But we have a motion to allow Civil Link to discuss that with the homeowners. So if there's no other discussion, we'll go ahead and vote on that tonight. That's all you're voting for, is to allow Civil Link to move forward with discussions with the homeowners. Is that correct, Nick?
Yes, and then we'll ideally either next meeting or two bring back the resolution, actually set the hearing, allow for the work and assessments to be done. Then you have another resolution setting another hearing for the actual assessment. So it is a process, but it just gets the ball rolling on that process.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes?
Alderman Who.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Next on our agenda this evening is a resolution to claim private property.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt the resolution granting authority to claim private property.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion among the board?
I got a quick question, Mayor. I see Austin in the back. Austin, I don't think, is Greenbrook Parkway, the Greenbrook Parkway house,
Yes, sir.
is it on, I don't see it on this
It's,
list.
it was condemned within a year, so we can just actually enter the property and cut it within 7 days.
Okay, gotcha.
It'll be cut Friday, or I'll send it to the guys to cut it Friday, and then it'll be on the next board.
Okay,
So.
cool, thank you.
Is there any other discussion among the board? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that has a financial interest in any of the properties that would like to speak? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Who.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Next on our agenda is our planning agenda. Ms. Whitney Cook.
Yes, sir. The first 3 items you're going to see on here are the ordinances that we proposed and voted on at the last board meeting concerning sidewalks, convenience stores, and the fee chart. After speaking with Nick, we needed to get them advertised 15 days in advance of an actual approval, just to give time for public hearing. So we went back, re-advertised, and so basically we're re-voting on the same things. There's been no changes to either one of them. The first one is an amendment to Title 13, Chapter 12, Section 13-12M. the commercial zone district. It requires that convenience stores or have a conditional use permit. And some of the requirements include being at an intersection, being at a lighted intersection, and a maximum of 2. Every time one comes and applies to the city for permission to go here, it will come in front of this board. Like I said, nothing changed from what we initially voted on last time. We just wanted to make sure we had proper notification of the papers.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion we approve resolution number 1 to the ordinance changes.
Second.
On item 1, we have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries on 1.
Ordinance amendment number 2 is Title 13, Chapter 3, Section 13-3I. This is incorporating a fee schedule for all of the application fees that we have associated with development. The one question I believe that was brought up last time by Alderman Hoods was, were any of the fees changed? No, they have stayed consistent basically since I've been here. We are not amending those amounts. We're just adding them into the actual ordinance to more formalize it. And that's basically it.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve amendment number 2 to our list of ordinances.
Second.
On item 2, we have a motion by Alderman Payne, a second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
Amendment number 3 is to Title 12, Chapter 4, Section 12-103. And this was concerning sidewalks being placed on both sides of the street with the exclusion of coves. Zoning ordinance already backed that. Normal ADA compliance says you need to have them on one side of the street if it's a collector road and 2 sides of the street if it's an arterial road. We chose to make the city more pedestrian friendly and add them on both sides of all streets minus arterial roads too, because you don't want to encourage, walking down Goodman Road and things like that. But basically this ordinance was to get the subdivision regulations and the zoning ordinance consistent. So the changes with the subdivision regulations, but it's just to match up with the zoning regulations.
Everything's ADA compliant.
Yes, everything is beyond ADA compliance. We've met their minimums and we've gone above and beyond it.
Move that we approve item number 3 on the planning agenda as presented.
Second.
On item 3, we have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
The final amendment is a new one being presented tonight, and it is an amendment to Title 12, Chapter 4, Section 12-106C. This is to put more definition and design criteria on streetlights. Right now, it's very general, it's very vague, saying it's at the discretion of Public Works and the Planning Department as to where they go. This new ordinance will require them to submit a street light plan with subdivisions so we can see where they're at in the subdivision. It requires that they go on the side, at minimum on the side with the sidewalk. If there are no sidewalks or if there are 2 sidewalks, it asks them to stagger down the road. It also puts a minimum distance of 200 feet between lights and a maximum distance in residential of 400 feet. That way, the measurements and the design are much more detailed, and developers and home builders know where we're going with it. We've also, once this is passed, we will present it to Entergy so they know, how to install them, because it's their responsibility to install them and then we maintain them. But once we get this passed, we'll pass this on to them, so they know what to look for with our designs, and they will work with us to make sure each plan is approved. I will also say my apologies, and that all new developments are required to have the decorative lighting, acorn lighting, light poles. Anything that's in existence now that has something other than that can remain consistent with what's in the subdivision.
Good.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve item 4 as presented.
Second.
On item 4, we have a motion by Alderman Gallagher, second by Alderman Flores. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Whitney, I also know that fire hydrants are 400 feet apart.
Yes, normally the fire department, and Danny can correct me if I'm wrong, or Chief Skellings can, I think the maximum distance with those are 500 feet in a residential area, and if you have a code that's longer than the 500 feet, then you're required to put additional ones in there. But yes, theirs is spelled out in the fire department's code.
Wouldn't be a bad idea to put that light by that fire hydrant.
Okay, we can make that note. We can just put possibly, if possible, to locate next to hydrants that are within that distance. I mean, we can word it somehow like that.
And again, this came up based on my request, hear from citizens about adding lights in subdivisions. We want to make sure that we have a formal plan, that we don't just haphazardly, throw the lights up. We want to make sure that every house is well lit and is safe. So that's what prompted us, looking into this one. Is there any other discussion on 4? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hicks.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
Item number 5 is a subdivision request to further revise and subdivide the Deer Chase North Commercial Park, specifically Lot 5, which encompasses 10.41 acres. It's the vacant property that's behind the pediatric dental office on Nail, behind the grill house building on Getwell. It's a large parcel. You'll see it up there in the aerial photos. What they're requesting to do is create 2 additional lots out of that, one being they're proposing Lot 7 with 0.72 acres and Lot 8 with 0.63 acres. Keeping everything else the same, there'll be an access point to Nail Road with this. There'll be an access point to carry on with to Getwell Road also. The only thing we asked is that the title block be changed to show the chronological order of the plating, so this should be the first revision to Lot 5 so that it follows suit. Otherwise, that is compliant with requesting approval.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve item number 5, planning agenda as presented tonight.
Second.
On item 5, we have a motion by Alderman Flores, a second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hicks.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Item number 6. We have a design review application from the Smile Center of Southaven, which will be an 8,000 square foot medical office and retail building. It's going to be on the north side of Church Road, just east of W. Ross Parkway. Hardquarter's got the Family Dollar on it, and then there's a vacant lot. That's what we're discussing. As you can see up there, it has a very modern twist to it. The only comments that we really had are the wainscot area, which is your bottom knee wall area, needs to be a masonry material. They're using brick and also fiber cement to look like wood on this. Either one of those can replace that area. They did agree upon that. The remainder of the materials are porcelain tile and that new paneling metal that they're using. You can see them right there. We had a red line copy of the landscaping. They agreed to that also. So with those changes and the agreement by the architect who was at the meeting, we're recommending approval.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve item number 6. Is it 6? Yep.
I've lost
Item number
count.
6 on the planning agenda.
Yes.
Second.
On item 6, we have a motion by Alderman Payne, a second by Alderman Gallagher. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Hicks.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion carries on 6.
Item number 7, again, is a design review approval. This is for a 12,000 square foot medical office. It's going to be on Lot 4, the Snowden Grove subdivision, Area 15. More specifically, this is in front of your chop house building. We went back and forth with architects numerous times. You'll see now that they have conformed more to the design of what the chop house in Snowden Grove has. They've added the fiberwood paneling on it, 2 tons of brick, and I know that the canopies, as they look metal, they're not. They're actually that fiber cement wood. They carried it along the back, the bottom of the window lines. This was our third trial with them, going back and forth, trying to take a little bit of the modernism out and put more of the architectural controls that Snowden Grove require. We feel like this was a good compromise. We have asked this one, as also with the previous one, to add the decorative lighting in. They've agreed to that. We've done a red line copy of their landscape. We're working on that now with staff who's reviewing it. But essentially, this is the rendering the elevation that was approved by the Planning Commission. So we're recommending approval of that with the comments and the additions for the landscape and the lighting.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion, we approve item number 7.
Second.
On item 7, we have a motion by Alderman Wheeler, a second by Alderman Flores. Is there any discussion?
Whitney, is this that lot that's just south, on the south side?
It's going to be the side between the bank and the water tower.
Okay.
Along Gatwell Road. They have no access to Gatwell Road. We controlled that with the existing drive, so we've gotten the congestion issue taken care of as well.
No more tall grass.
No more parking. We're going to have to announce that at the concerts. No more parking there.
Deal with that.
Any other discussion on 7? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
Okay, item number 8 has requested to hold. They're still gathering information, trying to do some of the background work on the history of that site. If you'll remember at the citizens agenda last time, we had the DeSoto Eye Care Clinic, the doctor and his 2 staff members come up discussing parking and the location of the dumpster. They have filed for variance. In the last minute, at the end of last week, they asked to hold. They were still gathering some information, so if we could just remove that. I don't think we need a motion or anything like that, do we? Okay. And item number 9, we have an application for a variance to allow non-conforming business to remain at 7800 Highway 51. More specifically, this is called the Everlasting Car Wash. It is in the existing automatic car wash that was once in service. It was no longer in service. We had someone come in and do an auto detailing on it in 2011. It's carried over to this date to be auto detailing and car washing. They were asked to come in compliance once the business license expired. When speaking to the attorneys, it was suggested that they come in either through a variance or conditional use permit. What you see in front of you is the application and the information there. So we got it late Friday, so I don't have a report. I can give you the details, and the gentleman in the back can answer any questions. So thanks, we'll just leave it open.
Do we want to table it until we get further information?
I mean, that's completely.
What information are we waiting for?
Do what? No. We were waiting on information. I didn't do a staff report on it, a recommendation report on it. No, I mean, we can discuss it however you want to handle it. I just didn't, usually mine comes with a follow report and it's not on there, so I was justifying why it wasn't there.
Right, we want to be fair, when we set the agenda, in fairness to the board members, there's a reason we have a time deadline.
Right.
It's not to make it difficult for anybody, it's to, out of respect for the board, to give the board members time, to gather all the facts before they're asked to make a decision about something. That deadline was not met by this. There's, in addition to a variance application, there, by email, there's also a requirement that there's a hard copy submitted with fee to the city.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, there's a fee of it.
Right, so that was not done. So in all fairness to the board, I want you to understand that we're extremely conscious of your need to be informed and to have a reasonable amount of time to do that. And so we did not get this in time to do that. So in all fairness, we did want to ask Whitney to still bring this up, and we can open up for discussion. If you don't want to take any action, we can still discuss it tonight, or we can table it. That'll be the board's call.
Make a motion to table it.
Second.
Till we get the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Flores to table this discussion on item 9. We got a second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion?
You'll have a staff report next meeting?
I can supply you one. Basically what mine will do, it will probably not give a recommendation just based on the history of it, but I will summarize and give a chronological history of all the events and let you have all the paperwork.
Okay.
So you can look up from there.
Do you have that information tonight with you, or is it something that, we have the people, they came out and stuff? So.
No, I have the majority of it. Mr. Hobson, who is the representing attorney, requested a public records request, so we did print out everything. I do have his public records request, and he does as well, but it has not been provided to you. It's a little thick. It goes through all of the business licenses and the correspondence that we've had with the applicant.
Point of table, we haven't had time
Yeah,
to review it.
yeah, excuse me just a second, just in respect for our procedures, we have a motion on the table and a second to table it. That can be changed if someone wants to, but right now, we're gonna vote on, we have a motion by Alderman Flores to table it, second by Alderman Kelly. All in favor say aye, table in the discussion.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, the motion is tabled. Now, we do have a citizens agenda. Please don't disrespect the procedures here, sir. It has been tabled. Item 9 has been tabled. That motion carries, it's been tabled. Now we'll move on, thank you, Whitney. We'll move on to the next part of our agenda, which is the mayor's report. I'll be brief tonight. I know that our agenda is very lengthy. Just two things I want to update the board and the citizens about. Our tennis center, we've had a few delays on that. We thought that it would be complete in April. We've worked through a few challenges over there. Wes and his staff have done a great job. But we do have a firm opening date now, June 22nd. So we're excited about that. The tennis pro shop will be open on June 22. Just one quick thing. Everyone may have seen that we moved quickly through our street improvement schedule. All of these streets that are on our schedule for FY18, most of those have, actually all of those have been done. We're moving into the bond streets. Y'all recall that we added some streets with some bond money to do capital improvement and help us get caught up on the streets. We're about 75% done with that, which is really nice. It's really nice to see some of the bond college subdivisions that never had their street finished, and the little kids are trying to simply ride their bike and they're dodging potholes. You know, when the kids can't even ride their bike, you know, it's time to finish the street. So we did that. Some of the subdivisions have given us some feedback. They're very appreciative of that, and we'll report that to you. So that's about 75% done. Last thing I want to share with you, when you see some streets that appear to be not done, like you have a total asphalt overlay in one section of it, but then you just have patching that's done and nothing else in the rest of it. The reason it looks like that is we're using different contractors for our seal coating. A lot of times you'll have a section of the street that's in horrific condition where it has to have a true asphalt overlay, but we're using seal coating now for the sections of the road that are in better condition to save money. It's about 33% of the cost of a full asphalt overlay. So those areas that we can do seal coating, they've not been done yet. So if you get calls from any of your citizens that says, hey, look, it looks like y'all need to finish, we know that we are going to finish it. We're waiting on our seal coating contractor, which I understand is not going to be able to get to us until sometime in July. So please help me relay that to the citizens. And that's all that I have on mayor's report. Now we have our citizens agenda, and we did have two people that signed up for the agenda. The first one is Mr. Tadero Muhammad.
May I approach?
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
I want to apologize to you, Mayor, to the board. The only reason I approached because my name was called and I thought they was begging for me.
No problem.
But I apologize to you. I'll pass down to what is the statement on behalf of Mr. Muhammad and his request to the board. We have met with your prosecutor, Mr. Robert Hayes, on the matter, and on Wednesday, and we assured him that we would try to get before the board as quick as possible, and that's the reason for the time tracking on. Mayor, on the first page, just to be succinct and not to squander my 3 minutes, basically it's a cover letter addressed to the mayor, and as part of the resolution that was under planning, the resolution is the knowledge that the Everlasting Car Wash operations remain, uses permitted in a C4 zone area. And in support of that, we are submitting a statement of undisputed facts and also a statement of what the issues are and the release requested. What we was trying to do was have a motion to be called for that hopefully you all would adopt and pass the resolution. If you return with me very quickly, if you can find the statement of undisputed facts, and I'll be brief. It's near the back. And if it's okay, I'm holding it up, and it just said, an affidavit by Tradell Muhammad, undisputed facts. One is a more legible copy. That's my fault, and that's not notarized. And behind it is his notarized copy. And basically, what it does, it lays out for the board exactly what the situation is. In and about 2013, a Mr. Curtis Carroll, this is in 2013, doing business at Time 2 Shine Car Wash and Detail, operating a hand car wash at 7800 Highway 51 North in Southaven, Mississippi. On about September 18, 2015, Mr. Muhammad took over the operation and remained at that location. Back in 2015, he made an application for a privilege license. And if you look at Exhibit A that's attached to that, it's got just a couple pages over. It's the actual application. It says City of Southaven privilege application. And it says Cut and Shine Car Wash. It shows down the bottom what he's applying for. On a couple days later, on September 25th, 2015, a business occupancy checklist was completed by the city's planning and development office, and also by the city building department. That's Exhibit B. If you turn to Exhibit B, gentlemen, you will see that the planning department recognized and acknowledged that it says, what is the zoning of this property, C4? Is this type of business allowed specifically in that location? It's marked yes. Is there any further process? In other words, is there conditional use, variance, or anything like that needed for approval? The Office of Planning and Development said no. And that was on September 12, 2015. And you see the business owners are Tradell Muhammad and also Johnny Holmes. At the top you see is for a hand car wash. Also at the bottom you will see on that same exhibit that there was a inspection done by the business department for the city. Has the property been inspected by the building official? Yes. Does the building official have any further comment? No, and it's signed off on that particular day. If you go back to the statement that we're making, that's very important. We're saying at that point that in that particular zone, C4, that his hand car wash was a permitted use. It was found to be a permitted use by the planning department. So, item 8 under the statement, undisputed facts, on or about that same day, September 24, 2015, the city issued the privilege tax license to him as Cut and Shine hand car wash for 78 Highway 51. This is back in 2015. Noteworthy, the city inspector completed an inspection report and issued a certificate of occupancy. All of those are exhibits to this statement. The certificate is issued pursuant to the requirements of the building code certified, and this is a quote from the actual permit, that at the time of issuance, this structure was in compliance with the various ordinances of the city regulating building construction. On October 15, December, that's a couple months after September, he made another application to change the name from Cut and Shine to Everlasting Car Wash. Attached to that application as an exhibit. He never ceased operation, and he maintained the same state ID, the tax ID number. On December 15th, that same day, the city issued him, again, a privileged license, which was to Tradell Muhammad doing business at Everlasting Car Wash. That was in 2015, it's now 2018. Noteworthy is that the license number, 4930, never changed. His license never changed. The business category never changed. The business type never changed. In other words, if you would visually walk with me, there is a convenience store on that corner of Highway 51, and adjacent to that convenience store, north is a car wash, and right next to the car wash on that same property was an automatic car wash that the city allowed in 2015 that area to be a hand car wash, and that structure was there, and it was approved by the city department and inspectors at that time by the occupancy permit. Tonight, what we're only asking for is that the city acknowledge at that time it was in a C4 zone, commercial, that it was a hand car wash, and it was permitted use. And under the chart, and I have a copy of the chart that you all use for that particular, the city uses for that particular zoning area, there's no distinction between a car wash and a car wash accessory use. They're both allowed in a C4 zone. And there's definitely no the distinction between that notice to the public between a hand car wash and an automatic car wash. If you look at what we are asking for, I have that a resolution, a proposed resolution, and you're welcome to, if the mayor is inclined to recommend or allow a vote, a recall, a reconsideration. You're welcome to redline this. We just want to keep operating and providing the business for the people who are employees there. So in other words, I'm not concerned about the wording if you want to take some of the wording out. Basically on page 5 of page, excuse me. Beginning on page 3 of 5, we would like the resolution to be passed that everlasting car wash type of business or service and the zoning area has never changed. A reasonable interpretation is whether it's an automatic car wash or a hand car wash. The existing operation is physically an accessory to the existing business. The mayor and board of aldermen in this order or adopts this resolution acknowledging and finding the everlasting car wash operation remain uses permitted in the C4 zoning area. And I'm skipping down a little bit here. And that's basically the gist of it. Of course, the city attorney is here to weigh in on it. But that's pretty much what we're asking for the city to acknowledge and recognize that it was initially permitted use within a C4 area, zoning area. There's no distinction between an automatic car wash and a hand car wash, and nothing's changed. And the guy's never stopped operating. He's always continued to operate as he was required to do. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll be welcome to entertain.
I would like to clarify a few, but just one or two things that I don't believe that are not correct. Let's back up a little bit. I don't dispute what you say that happened in 2015. But it's important to note that all that our planning director is doing is enforcing the ordinances of the city. What has happened here is, and you are correct, that there's no distinction between hand or automatic, but there is a distinction between a car wash and an accessory business. And that's the issue here. If it's an accessory business, it has to have a it's a non-conforming, so it has to have an allowance for non-conforming use. With that, there is a grandfather situation where it does allow ones that do not have a disruption in business. I do disagree with you that there's a disruption in business. The permit expired on December 31st, 2017, was not renewed again or attempted to be renewed until April of 2018. So that is a disruption in business, which disqualifies it from the grandfather clause. So again, that's not to make a recommendation to this board what they do or don't do. I just want to point that fact out, that is a fact of this situation. There is, I'm a very candid person. You and I have had some discussions. I'm going to point out two other things too. I respect the business and what you're trying to do. What I do not respect is the fact that when you knew you were operating without a permit, you continued to operate. Now, I know that you had judicial discussions after that fact, but from December 31st until an application was made in April, it was very clear that there was no active business permit. The business owner continued to do business, and that's disrespectful to the ordinances of the City of Southaven. I take my job very seriously. My planning director works for me. If you're disrespecting the ordinances of the city, we're gonna do our job, and so I think that's important to note. There's one other issue, or actually two other issues that are important to note. The other issue, or the first issue, is it comes to there's a reason that there has to be a conditional use permit, because there's other factors that come into play. Specifically, there is a difference between a automatic car wash and one that's operated in the parking lot. It's a hand car wash. In this situation, there have been times where there have been extension cords that are running from the primary building on the property. Extension cords are laying in water. We've actually had citizens that have complained about that. They were concerned about the safety of it after they left there. Having extension cords placed in water is not a safe thing. We have to be concerned about the safety of the people that are in our city. The other thing is there was an issue with employees. You're familiar with that. Regardless of what this board chooses to do, eventually when this is brought back off the table and they vote on this, it's important to note that the other laws of our city will be enforced. If there's drug use that occurs there among the employees, that we will enforce all of the laws of our city. And that is a situation that's public record that did occur on that property.
May I respond very briefly?
Yes, sir.
Regarding the alleged drug use, my client is here, the chief is here. I think if the record would bear out that we can't take responsibility for what all our employees do, or and when we find something out, we come and help the police. And I think you would find if you talk to the chief, and I stand to be corrected, that he reached out to the police department here and let them know he wasn't involved in any of that. And the car wash is during the daylight, and there is the owner has a surveillance, and we'll make any tapes available any time of the day. We want to work with the police, and we wash their cars free. They're so inclined to bring them over. We want them involved. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if I may, I just want to, if the board can peruse, these are this is the table from the zoning ordinance of the City of Southaven, and in there you'll find, if you look down permitted uses on the left column, and on the right column, if you go over to C4, and it distinguishes between a car wash and a car wash accessory.
Yes, sir.
Initially, we was classified as a car wash accessory. Well, it doesn't matter. They're both in C4. I think there's a different distinction between zoning violation versus perceived or alleged business license, non-renewal and taxes. Two separate issues. But we're focusing in on the zoning issues. I want to be clear that the rules say we're in the permitted area. Now, if you said a distinction between a hand car wash versus the automatic car wash, then we would have to go back to the occupancy permit that was issued by the building.
And I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that per the sheet that you just passed around, there's a difference in a primary business that's a car wash and car wash by accessory. And all the ones that are by accessory do require a conditional use permit. And anytime you're asking for a conditional use, there's a reason for that. There's other concerns there. So these other facts that I've mentioned tonight are relevant facts. I mean, when you have a situation where there's extension cords being used, that's a concern. And that's why the city feels like that there are other locations that are safer, having a bay, where you can put a vehicle in a bay. You're not using extension cords. It's a much safer place to do what you're talking about. So I'm telling you, with my board, I'm not being an advocate for not having this business in the city. I'm just saying that when you have, by our zoning ordinances, when you have an accessory car wash, there's a reason a conditional use permit is used to allow the board to make good judgment on the safety of the business and all the other factors that come into play.
I just have two quick other points on different areas, but just a brief response to that. The only question I would have for the board then is, what do we do with the fact that the building inspector back in 2015 looked at that building, authorized it to be a primary car wash at that time? If you look at the exhibit that's attached to our undisputed facts, the building inspector checked off on it, as well as the planning department. They knew that structure, what used to be an automatic car wash, was now going to house a handheld car wash. Now, if there's violations with respect to an outlet, such as this one down here, that's not correct, then that doesn't, I would submit to the board that doesn't violate the fact that you're allowed to occupy a particular building. And we're saying if there's something other than zoning, that's not a zoning, which is an electrical issue or fire issue or something like that, then if we've given notice of it, then we can correct that. But the other 2 points I would recognize real quick is on the conditional use. The language that's in the application was passed, it specifically says, and I put it in the statement of disputed facts, the inspector said, no conditional use is required, no permit is required, no further process is required. They said it on the approval form on the business occupancy checklist. And now it's 2018, the man been up 3 years.
It's not indefinite though, it expires. That's not a conditional use permit is not indefinite.
It wasn't a conditional use. They say it in there. He acknowledged it to be a permitted use at that particular time. Now, quickly, and we speak to the grandfather issue inside the documents for the sake of time.
Sure.
I'm going to go into that, but I just will point out that there was a correspondence between my client and the planning office, and it says that he's grandfathered in. I don't think it's a grandfather situation, but I wasn't gonna argue at all. I wasn't gonna get up and do a presentation if the application would have been passed. However, you find to allow him to operate that he doesn't care. Here, back in 2017, they say he was grandfathered in so long as he stays open and doesn't change ownership. So, if he closed down or if he stopped operating, then he violates the grandfather in. It's like the chicken and the egg. And I think it's to some extent, it's miscommunication, and maybe that both sides can, I don't mean this board, but I'm just talking about people like myself on have Mr. Hummel could communicate a little bit better to understand what's what. But he's definitely staying open to just meet the conditions of the alleged grandfather in clause. And this is a part of your package, and you're welcome to look at it. I got an extra copy for the board.
Do we know why the permit was not renewed? Why was there a lapse? Why was it not renewed?
Well, there's 2 issues on that, Mayor. 2 issues. When you say, you're talking about the license.
Correct.
The business license. Hey, the man had a stroke the first year, all right? And then he came back and the license, I think it was about 4 or 6 months out. And they just didn't know. And when it was brought to his attention, he went down there and paid.
Did he continue business during that time?
Correct.
He had a stroke and he couldn't do the permit, but he could continue the business.
Well, if I may, it's like if you open a convenience store and you got a stroke, you still got employees in there working and saying, we're gonna take care of this for you, don't worry about it or whatever.
Right, so one of those employees couldn't submit the proper paperwork to the city?
As soon as his wife became aware of it, they sent it to him, they told her about it, she went down there and paid the $30 or whatever it was. So.
And I'll go as far as to say, I think this board will make look at this and make an honest assessment at our next meeting. But I am questioning why the business continued even though they were asked to stop.
Well, here's the direct answer is, what does the grandfather in clause tell us to do? It says if you ever stop, this alleged grandfather thing doesn't apply.
But it's important to note, just because you qualify based on zoning doesn't still give you the authority to operate a business without a permit. I mean, I can't go and open up a business and start doing business and then say, hey, I'm gonna get around to going to the city and get me a permit. That's not how it works. That's very disrespectful to the ordinances of the city. You get the permit first, then you start business. And that's how I've operated my business. I couldn't operate my business without a license and then come back and say, well, I'm gonna get that later. I would be shut down. And that's what has happened here.
No, sir, I agree with you on the points previously, but not your conclusion. If you look at the statement of facts, he was granted a license a renewal. The license number never changed. He was granted a license in 2015. That number never changed. The only problem is the tax, the $30 or whatever it is. And in 2018, he went down and paid the tax. They issued him the license on January 1st, 2018, is only because this perceived or alleged, this incident with one of the employees, that all of this became an issue. But nobody knows that, I don't think the board is aware that this man has went down and spoken with the police department, made them aware that he's not involved and invited them there. And that's not him. And if these young men that are working there wasn't working there during the day, now you're gonna have all the kids ain't gonna act right. But if they're not working there during the day, then where are they gonna be? He's providing a source for them to be out there doing it. The car wash is not open at night, during the day.
But that doesn't condone other illegal activity, though. I mean,
He doesn't condone
I respect
either.
what you're
He's
saying, and I
not
agree
condone.
with you. I agree with you that that does give an option for the employees and for the young people, and I respect that, but it does not condone other illegal activity, which was.
He calls it out. He calls it out. He's not gonna condone it. We're not gonna have it. That's why we surveillance the place. That's why we will work with law enforcement. Whenever there's something that's illegal, we're gonna call the police. I believe, he may have called the police last week. I know he's on the phone with me about something. And we're gonna always be open and transparent.
Did y'all find the perpetrator, or did our police find the perpetrator?
I am not sure about the details of that, but I do know that Mr. Muhammad, who's here, he personally called or talked to Chief Colonel, and they had a conversation. I don't know the details of that, but the purpose of it is to let law enforcement here know that we are there. If they need a bridge into the community, communication works both ways. The way to help, we will assist. By the same token, if there's somebody doing something wrong, we're gonna call them out and we're gonna report it.
Chief, do you remember how that came about?
The arrest,
Yes, sir.
that was started out as a tip that
Right
was,
here. Okay, this is zoning, it's a
Right,
zoning
okay.
issue, we don't want to, it's a zoning issue, we need to keep it limited to zoning and not necessarily a criminal investigation thing, so I'm not trying to interrupt, but just so we don't do that.
We
but-
tabled.
Well, I'm saying, like, no offense to them, we can talk about the zoning, if y'all want to,
That's
just
fine.
not the criminal
That's fine.
aspect of it,
Never
that's
mind.
okay.
Can I ask just a couple of questions? Whitney, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If he would've came in the first of the year and came in to get his license, would we be here today?
That would be through the city clerk's office. The reason we were notified that he was no longer operating is because the property owner himself came in and in front of 3 city officials asked to reopen the business, and we informed him no.
So, I mean, he
So it was
could,
closed at that point. They were, he was at, the property owner asked to reopen it under his name, and we informed him no at that point in time. There would be no reopening of it because it then fell into requirements for compliance now.
so if he'd came in when his license expired on the 31st.
As long as the license, you know,
And he came in and paid his $22 or whatever it is, would we be here today, is what I'm asking. I mean, would we?
as long as he remained open, I mean, and compliant, yes. I mean, I was the one that allowed it. He came and talked to me. I was the one that allowed him to go in there, and the guy previous from him. It had remained a consistent open business throughout 3 ownership changes. As long as it remained open, we left it alone. What happened in this instance was that we were running into some code violations. We were aware of it, but as long as we were open, and it was what it was. When December came along, he was very good about renewing his business license. When December came along and it was time to renew, as soon as it expired, the property owner came in and said, hey, it's closed, I'd like to reopen it under, mine. We were like, oh, no, you can't do that. And then, of course, in April, Mr. Muhammad's wife came in and asked to renew the business license once I guess she was aware that it was expired, and that's when we informed her, no, at this point, it's not you can't reopen, you just need to go through the requirements. And he gave you the sheet, and I think the mistake is saying that C that's in the block beside car wash and accessory car wash, yes, they're allowed in C4 zones, they are. Both, it doesn't matter if it's a hand wash or automatic car wash, it doesn't matter if it's primary and accessory. That C on that use, you have what's called an S, which is a permitted by right business, which is site lane only. The C besides C4 in each one of those item, I guess the little table, is C for conditional use permit, which means it's required in that ordinance, in that zoning, to be a conditional use permit only, and it'll describe it all through there. But I mean, like I said, I've talked to Mr. Hudson, I've gone back and forth with Mr. Muhammad. Nobody's saying you can't go there. We just need to get compliant at this point. There's a process at this point because it did close for a period of time. So
Why
now,
don't we wait till April to do this? I mean, was there something going on between January and April that we were ignoring the fact that he was open?
we were holding for another department who was finishing up some paperwork on.
Yeah, and that's what concerns me, Nick, about this, is the fact that the way it was explained to me was we kind of ignored it for 4 months because there was a police investigation going on. And do we have any kind of liability for the fact that we allowed it to stay open, knowing that he was in violation, and now we're saying that once that investigation's over with, we're closing you down? I mean...
No, excuse me just a second. No, and like I mentioned earlier, my staff has an obligation to do their job. you and your fellow board members, y'all make policy. If you want to change what's in that black ordinance book, you can do that at any time. But until then, me and my staff are going to enforce the ordinances. So regardless of the amount of time that passed, the bottom line is when he no longer was in business legally, it doesn't matter what day that was, there was a lapse in business which requires them to go back and do another conditional use permit. So all that Whitney's doing and all that I'm doing is enforcing what's in the ordinance book.
Right, and I understand that.
So really what you're saying is really irrelevant.
No, I'm just asking, I'm asking the question to our city attorney, do we have any legal liability for ignoring the fact that we didn't shut him down, right off the bat? We left it.
Are you gonna tell me that we don't have the ability to enforce our ordinances in the city? I can answer the question. At any given time, we have the right to do that.
Right. I'm trying not to be disrespectful, Mayor. I was just asking a question to the city attorney.
Okay. Well, did you answer his question, city attorney?
I need to look into all that. This is literally just getting this and getting everything. There's a lot to look into.
That's the reason we tabled it.
Yeah. Well, this is
So we have
citizens
time to
agenda.
get all
So.
sides. I have no problem with Mr. Hobson, because the things I like to listen.
Oh,
At the same
and
time,
I don't mean-
hold on. You said a lot, let me talk. We need time to be able to ask questions of the police chief, of Ms. Choate, of Deputy Chief Anderson, of anybody, so we can actually make an informed decision.
Right.
So while we continue the discussion,
Well, we're about to stop. I'm gonna stop it. But anyway, I just wanted to have the floor open so to let him, because what he's said has been informative for the board. It was tabled on the planning agenda. So what you've been able to tell the board is helpful. They're informed. So when we come back to the next meeting, they'll be informed. They'll also have time to review and make a decision at that point. But the things I said are things that are relevant. It's important what you said. It's also important what I said, so they can be informed and make a decision. But and again, before we end the conversation, I just want to make sure Alderman Hoots understands that Whitney and all the other employees have a job to do. It's not, they don't make policy decisions. You make policy decisions. So if you don't like the ordinance book, then the way you do it is you make a motion, and if 4 other people on this board vote, we change that. Until that happens, me and my department heads and all my other employees are going to enforce what's in that black book.
That wasn't my intention. I just had a simple question. Are we, going to be facing any kind of problems? And that's why I asked the question I asked.
Okay.
I guess, just so I'm clear, at the next meeting, are we going to consider a variance? Is that what you're wanting?
Well, I mean, a conditional use, this is what me and Mr. Hobson talked about. A conditional use has a public hearing notice requirement. You see the big red public notice signs everywhere. It goes through a process of the Planning Commission first, into the Board of Aldermen on the 3rd week. It's essentially a 7 to 9 week process. In an effort to kind of finalize this and get some answers quick, we also have the capabilities to do a variance. So that was my suggestion, to get it expedited and figure out what we're going to do, was to go under a variance application. There are both alternatives. And I think he has actually filed the conditional use as well as the variance. I guess it's up to this board to determine what application we want. If it goes to a conditional use application, then we need to step back, put it in the Planning Commission's hands, get the red public hearing notice signed out there on the property, and go through the advertisement and the public hearing process.
And just to give Mr. Hobson some direction, though, as she said, there's 2 options.
If I may,
Let me finish my sentence, please, sir.
Sorry.
There's 2 options. You submit a variance application and a conditional use application, and we'll bring them both to this board on June 19th, and the board will vote, and then that will be the formal decision on behalf of the city.
Well, if I may, just by way of the city attorney, I know if Mr. Miller don't mind, I'll be trying to work with him and work with the planning department from now to that time. But here's another question. The question is, we've got a conditional use avenue, got a variance avenue. However, what do we do about the fact that the finding and acknowledgement of what the zone was and what the permitted use was in 2015 and those findings? I don't really, if the board had a chance to digest the material, you may find, Mayor, not presupposing this, that all we need is an acknowledgement and finding that he be allowed to continue as permitted. But by respect and also taking the suggestions of the planning director, that was the reason for me submitting. We talked about this Wednesday over at City Court, and that application was put together in that time along with the conditional use and submitted, because I was listening and wanted to honor and work with the department with those 2 options. But myself personally, professionally, I don't believe that neither one of those courses is applicable here. I think the only thing we need is an acknowledgement and finding by this board that you should permit it as by the director and also the building inspector in 2015. It's still applicable in terms of zoning. Now, if you want to do something in terms of license, that's different.
Right, and you communicate, I think you've done a great job communicating that, and the board understands that, and they've expressed their wishes previously on the planning agenda to table it. They do not want to take any action tonight. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your courtesy in the way that you presented this issue to the board tonight. And this board will have.
Appreciate the packing, honestly. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this board will have time to consider all facts and take action on June 19th.
I think you could only consider a variance on the 19th because you wouldn't have time to get a conditional use. So the planning, if Whitney's okay with submitting a variance application, that could be submitted on the 19th for consideration to the board.
Right, and the only reason, let me clarify, the only reason I say that is if the board declined the variance application, then you would go to the conditional use, which will take more time. The only reason I told you that is those are two valid options. So the first thing, the variance, as Nick is saying, the variance would be the first thing that's presented on the 19th.
If I may, Mayor, just one other point. I don't want to be out of order, but I want to be transparent.
Yes, sir.
In terms of the way forward, in terms of procedure, I do not want to offend any of the laws. The prosecutor and I believe Mr. Manning can correct me if I'm wrong, we had an understanding that there will be a stay in any enforcement regarding this matter, and that's why he continued to operate. So, and I've got an email from the sport there. So I tried to gingerly answer your question in the email because I know you probably didn't know.
But that occurred on May 30th. What I'm saying, my point, what I'm saying is from January 1 until that date, you were operating a business without a business permit.
If I may quickly respond, if you check the license, it was issued on 1st, 2018. It never was voided until you look at the date. It says April whatever when it was voided and the money given back.
What we could do is, let me just make a suggestion here. Stay everything until the June 19th hearing for the variance, if that's okay with everybody. Like, there seems to be tons of information that just happened right now with everybody.
Trying to digest everything.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know what's what right now, but stay everything until June 19th and have a variance, until the variance hearing.
I don't support anybody doing business without a permit in the city. I don't. But anyway, we've tabled discussion. That's all the time we have on the citizens agenda, so we'll move on. Thank you for coming forward. I appreciate that.
I have a citizens agenda.
I got you.
Okay, excuse me.
The next person signed up is Peter Hamby. Would you please come forward?
My apologies, I thought you were cutting off the citizens agenda. If it please, I have a handout for the council. Is that all right? And one for the record. We're going to segue from car washes to a hedge fund. Bear with me. So a little bit about myself. I graduated college as a nuclear engineer and went up to Chicago to work. I'm from Memphis, raised here. I moved back from Chicago in December of 2014. I lived in Bartlett for several months with my brother to get my bearings, and then I moved here to Southaven. I live at 1270 Dixie-Lynn Drive, which is off of Davis, south of Church. So there, on Dixie-Lynn, there are maybe several dozen homes. They're like 1.5, 2 acres, pretty big homes. All we have access to, all I can get is AT&T DSL. I cannot even get AT&T Universe. I asked AT&T to put in a work order. They submitted a work order to rewire it, and they said it would cost $68,500. And so they said they weren't going to do it, and I asked them if I wrote them a check, if I could recoup the money, and they thought I was kidding, but I was serious. But anyway, that's it. That's all I could do. So subsequently, I run a hedge fund out of 6814 Crumpler Boulevard in Olive Branch. I would rather run the hedge fund out of Southaven, Mississippi. So I lease office space on Crumpler and Olive Branch and I pay for an Olive Branch business license. I mentioned to you that, in Chicago, I could get enterprise level broadband in any of the villages, didn't matter where I was. In Bartlett, Tennessee, no matter where I lived in Bartlett, Tennessee, I could get to my doorstep enterprise level high-speed broadband. I can't even get anything beyond DSL where I'm living. I'm gonna browbeat you a little bit. I think it's a shame, and I know it's a big hurdle. But I've got a suggestion, and I think that one way to maybe approach this, and I had to confess, I did call Chris Shelton, who's the IT director, and this piqued his curiosity a bit. I told him, I explained to him that the way the villages in the Chicago area did their broadband and fiber optic, they really levered their franchise ability. And they actually let sole source, sole provider contracts. And I think that there might be an easy kind of no downside way for you guys to explore that avenue. Just let out some RFPs to C Spire, Comcast, whoever. There's going to be some sort of break-even ratio where their infrastructure investment pays off. I know that sole source is a dirty word mostly, but it can also be a pretty powerful tool for the community. I would imagine that there's some time frame where C Spire would say, yeah, we'll come in and we'll do the entire city limit, door-to-door, fiber optic. I would imagine that Comcast or possibly AT&T would have the same sort of break-even threshold for high-speed broadband, door-to-door. In other words, no matter where you are in Southaven, because right now the neighborhoods south of me, they have AT&T U-verse. The next neighborhood south, which is a development, a subdivision, they have Comcast. So it's very convoluted right now. There's 3 different technologies. There's DSL, there's broadband, there's fiber optic here. And so this is all I'm simply saying is that Southaven's really growing. It's a gem, but I'm telling you, this is driving people away. I've got a sister who's an executive vice president for Medtronic. She's thinking about moving to Covington. She won't think about Southaven because she needs to work at home from time to time, and she can't use GoToMeeting. And in other words, what's she going to buy? I mean, it's very inconsistent. You could buy on one block, you're getting one provider, one technology, another block, buy this lot, buy that lot. You know what I'm getting at with this? So, I just think it's something for you guys to consider. Lever that that franchise power for the good of the community. That's it. I didn't want to browbeat you. I mean, it's obvious. I'm just restating the obvious that it's a very fragmented. It's very scattered. It's the internet situation here is just so poor. Even what they call broadband, U-verse. If you look at the upload versus download speeds, it's not that good.
I want to share just a little bit of information with you. Just so you know, there have been efforts on behalf of the city. C Spire in 2014 had a project going where they were going to come into the city, so we did make application for that, for them to come in and improve the internet infrastructure. There are many areas in our city where there are lots of options. I'm sorry that you're in a situation that you are. I agree DSL is unacceptable in 2018. That's ridiculous. The big issue here is these are private decisions. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm asking you, what are you suggesting that the city would do other than just be a voice requesting a private business to do something, but we really have no control over having a private business make decisions on what they feel is cost effective to install infrastructure on any given area of the city.
I'm not an expert. I'm a portfolio manager. I'm certainly not an attorney, But I can tell you that, you know, in the city of Bartlett, anywhere I can get enterprise level high-speed stuff, all the villages around Chicago pretty much are like that too. I mean, it's really complicated right now. I think it's serious to look at the fact of having one provider.
For the whole city?
It's something to think about. Or at least RFP it. I mean, there's no downside to see what that means. What can you provide?
But that's what I'm trying to ask you, what exactly are you suggesting that we do? How do we RFP something that's not a public service?
We got out of the internet business. We used to have Magnolia Wave. And it was, we couldn't, honestly, just couldn't afford to keep it up to date. It was citywide. It was done early 2000s. Chris sitting here and answered the question, so I don't know. It was done early 2000s before any of us were on board. And we ended up getting rid of it probably 6-7 years ago just because it was so behind and everything else.
Yeah.
Passive. We could not keep up with it money-wise. We couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So I'm just, what is your how would we do that? I'm asking, just want to know more about what you're asking us. How do we RFP something that is not within our authority to do?
So you can't grant a sole source franchise for internet for the city of Southaven?
That's a private. All these carriers are private carriers. We can't.
Right now, we have various franchise agreements with different carriers. You have Xfinity, Comcast,
Right.
AT&T, C-Spire. So anytime one comes in, we never turn it down as far as the franchise agreements go. But we don't have the under the Public Service Commission governs a lot of those things.
Mhm.
We don't have the authority to go say Comcast, she'll be the only sole provider of internet in the entire city.
Okay. Do you have the? Apparently, I'm being shut out. I can't order anybody else or anything else with AT&T.
I only have Comcast, believe me.
Can you at least tell AT&T?
We actually.
I mean, why is that my only?
No, well, two things. We have a franchise agreement with AT&T for them to go wherever they want in the city. So AT&T then chooses where they want to go. Obviously, the city would, under our franchise agreement, gives them the right to go wherever they want to go. Same thing with Comcast. My understanding is some of these carriers don't go where it's not where there's not that much population, and that's kind of what's happened. I think they're getting more and more interest in that based on our franchise agreements. But from the city's perspective, we've never turned down a franchise agreement for any internet, basically from the standpoint of working the agreement out and try to get as many carriers as we can in many different locations. Over the last 7 years, at least that's been the norm for us, for the city. I mean, we don't have the authority to go say.
So it sounds like you've got, it's so fragmented that they just can pick and choose.
Yeah, we can't tell the private entity where to go other than they can use our right of ways to get there. We can make it easier for them to get there, but we can't say you must go X, Y, and Z at these locations. We don't have that authority.
And I'll say this, Mr. Hamby, we feel your frustration. I hear it a lot.
This is ridiculous. I can't tell you how bad this is.
It's not good. We know that.
You know, there's a lot of people that
We've
do
got
a
new
lot of
developments
things.
that don't even have access to internet. I mean, to cable.
What about cellular wise? Can you get 4G at your house? Because that's probably faster than what your DSL what you're using now.
I can't get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and put in orders for Deutsche Terminal Börse in Frankfurt, Germany to buy 1,000 German bonds over that, you know. 8 o'clock at night, I can't call the Hang Seng Index and sell the FTSE. Yeah, no, that would, plus it would be tremendously expensive. No, that's not feasible. So,
We appreciate you coming forward. I appreciate the information.
Yeah.
That's why, to answer your question, can Southaven compete in the digital economy? We certainly want to have the best options for all of our citizens, but bottom line is we can't force a private business to add the infrastructure, although we can use our voice and influence when we're in discussions, and that does occur to express the need, like your need. I agree, DSL is ridiculous in 2018. So we'll continue doing
and
that.
I have apparently no other option.
Go to the Public Service Commission.
I did.
Well, they suggest come down here.
He's in Alabama right now. I talked to his assistant for about 45 minutes last week. It's their number one thing. But here's the thing: nobody's going to drop a bag of money in a Southaven's lap. I mean, they got a grant. they got a $7 million grant, and they're using that right now for research and scope and things like that. Any future grants are gonna go to first responders and to schools. And then any other grants after that are going to go to the poorest rural parts of Mississippi, which Southaven, DeSoto County is not. So, you know, I guess here's my real point. Are you willing to just keep this situation along and say our hands are tied because these are independents? And you've got, for God's sakes, I can go to Bartlett and get what I need, I guess.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I would say that we welcome your ideas. I mean, we welcome there being more options, but what I'm telling you, and what our city attorney, I think, is telling you, is that there's some things that legally we can do and we can't do. We can't force anyone to invest.
Right.
in certain
Plus another thing, these technology, these communication companies, they're all changing their model because, and they're not putting ground cable anymore, just because the technology's changing dramatically every day, and they're all, I mean, pretty soon, within the next couple years, this will all be through TV towers, Wi-Fi. I mean, and you'll have 5G. They're not spending the money to route the cables and fill neighborhoods like that when it will be obsolete in 3 years. And that's a lot what's going on.
People said that 2 decades ago.
With all due respect, we have to move on.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, well, first of all, we had 2 people that signed up on the agenda. Was there anyone else that wants to speak on the citizens agenda? Okay, we'll move on. Next on the agenda is our personnel document.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the personnel documents presented on the state.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
That motion carries. All right, next on our agenda is our city attorney's legal update.
Yeah. 2 quick items. First, just notification, no action required by the board, but our contract with ACI, for the payments for utilities online, the debit price, which is paid by the person paying the actual bill, the debit price went to $1.25, the credit price went to $2.75. In addition to your bill, just need to include that in minutes. Per the contract, they could increase it with notice. They gave that notice. It's not paid by the city, it's just paid by the person who uses the online mechanism. Just notify that in minutes. The next item is the contract with AMB. This contract is for the medical billing and ambulance billing for City of Southaven Fire Department, and just need approval for the mayor to sign that contract. Made a couple of changes to it. It's been reviewed by the Chief Scaggins and the Fire Department, and tonight approval for that, for the mayor to sign.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on our agenda is our claims docket.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the claims docket in the amount of $2,585,270.73, including demand checks.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Flores. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. All right, next on the agenda is the, to determine the need for executive session.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Wheeler. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Now we need a motion to declare executive session. Well, excuse me, let me tell you the need. The need this evening is claims litigation involving city infrastructure and police, personnel in Southaven Police Department, courts, and planning department, and economic development within the city of Southaven. Is there a motion to declare?
So moved.
So we have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Payne. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. The mayor and board will now enter executive session.